What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about early game in Fortnite, because if you can't get past early game consistently, you're not going to be winning games consistently. If you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more. Let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is how the glider lock system works, because Fortnite has a pretty unique landing system where once you get to a certain altitude from the ground, you can no longer put your glider away. And this kind of makes that the limiting factor on how fast you can land, because some people, you know, they want to go Mega City, for example, and they just jump out of the bus and glide at Mega City or dive at Mega City, hoping to, you know, have the best landing. And in a lot of battle royales, this would work because you basically can just drop until you eventually just eliminate yourself if you choose to do so. But in Fortnite, once you reach a certain distance from the ground, you get glider locked. And once you get glider locked, you're no longer unlocked until you land. And so you have to be very mindful of what you're gliding over. And the distance at which you get glider locked, how long you'll be able to glide from there. It's kind of hard to explain. It's just something you get a feel for by playing the game and understanding this mechanic. But I'll have this clip here where I'm going to be going Mega City in this clip, and I just jump out of the bus and look towards the water and dive towards the water, get glider locked, and then I glide from where I got glider locked to Mega City. And I get like basically at the ground. I would get here like before anybody else. If you wanted to land on like on top of one of the buildings, it would be different. But you notice I dove towards the water and I didn't glide over the mountain. If I glided over this mountain to my left, we would have gotten glider locked super high up in the sky, because it doesn't matter like what the actual ground level it is. It just cares about like your character to ground level. So if you glide over something that's, you know, a mountain, a tall building, just any sort of large formation on the map, you're going to get glider locked at a greater altitude, and this is going to make your landing worse. On the flip side, diving over water makes it to where you can get even lower before getting glider locked, because it counts that like area under the water as actual ground level. So oftentimes gliding over the water or diving over the water is going to let you get glider locked at a lower altitude, and that's going to result in you hitting the ground before other players and being able to like get loot and get ready to fight people, things like that. But it'll really vary from POI to POI where you're landing. The thing you just want to keep in mind is how this mechanic works, and be careful of what you're gliding over, and try to hit glider lock before you get to the POI. You want to like get glider lock somewhat near your POI and then glide to it from there. Whereas like if you just dive over your POI and then you get glider locked while you're already at your POI, your landing isn't going to be as good as other players who got glider locked early and then went from there to the POI. So like I said, it's difficult to just like kind of explain. It's more of something that you got to understand how it works, and you get the feel for it over time, I feel like. And the next thing that I personally like to do, I feel like this could be somewhat subjective, but I like landing near the edge of my POI. So if you have like several houses, some are in the center, I like kind of like landing on the edge of the POI. That way I only have to worry about one direction. Like let's just take Slappy Shores, for example. There's the houses section, and then there's like the factory section. If you're someone who's landing at like the capture point, it doesn't really make much sense, because then you have to worry about the factory side and the houses. Whereas like if you land on the edge of the houses and then clear from there, you don't have to worry about as many angles immediately when you're landing. And this example could be made for every POI. Like when I land somewhere, I tend to like to land on the edge, like still at the POI, but not to where there can be opponents coming from 360 degrees right away. Just kind of makes it easier to play early game, I think, if you get one of the edges of the POI and then clear from there, rather than starting in the center and having to worry about everything. Also, when you're landing, it's good to try to be aware of where other people are landing in your POI. You're not always going to be able to do this if you have an ideal landing and you just hit the ground way faster than other people. But if you do have the ability to kind of look around you and see where other people are landing, this can make a huge difference, because if everybody is landing on the same side of the POI, like let's say Slappy again, for example, if the factory side is super contested, then you might just want to go houses side, because all of those people at factories are going to fight each other, and then you can just third party it after looting up. And like the flip side of that is true. If houses is super cons, then you can go to like maybe the other side of houses or the factory side itself and kind of get better timing or more time to loot up, because you don't have as many people just landing right on you. And you just like, if you pay attention to where other people land, you'll be more mindful of where you can expect enemy players to be coming from once you're actually playing the game. So that is good to do. It's not always going to be possible because, like I said, if your landing is just much better than everybody else's, you're going to be already in your building and looting before they've even landed. And I feel like for a lot of newer players, if you just learn how to land better than other people in your lobbies, it's going to make early game so much easier for you because not that many new players really understand the glider lock mechanic of this game. I think being good with a variety of weapons is super helpful for early game because you're not really going to be able to be picky about what you get. If you land at a house and the only thing it has is the Havoc AR or the DMR, for example, and you don't really like either of those weapons, I mean, it is what it is. You got to use them for that situation. So I try to like be comfortable with everything in the game. Obviously, there's weapons I don't like I don't really care for the lock-on pistol, but I've used it, and like if I get it off spawn, like I can use that weapon. And I would say that for most weapons, especially shotguns, a lot of people have a preference of shotgun and they just never use the other one. But in early game, like any shotgun you can get is better than the other. So if you're someone who like typically prefers the Maven or the Combat and you never use the pump, it might be worth trying to use the pump a little bit just to get used to it. That way, if you do have to use it off spawn, you're a little more like threatening in those fights, or you have a higher potential to win those fights. There's also a preferred item slot setting in the game where you can kind of program where certain weapons or what item slot they're set to go to when you pick them up. And this could be super helpful for early game because it often is chaotic and you won't have as much time to rearrange your inventory. So if you kind of set these up, I personally only have shotgun and SMG bound, and then the other ones I can deal with later. But like early game, I want my shotgun in slot 1 and like my spray weapon next to my shotgun. So this setting can be good. Not everybody uses it, but I think it can be helpful for early game. The next thing is also going to be somewhat subjective, but this is just my preference. If you have the option between landing on a gun or a chest, I pretty much always go for the gun, because you know what you're getting, and you can often get the gun and eliminate the player before they open the chest. Whereas like the player opening the chest, they have to open the chest, get the weapon. Not only is it a surprise what weapon they're getting, but they have to pick it up and then like turn and fight you. Whereas like if you just land on a gun, then you're going to have an easier time killing them potentially while they're opening the chest. But even if they do get their gun, you already kind of know what weapon you have and it makes it easier. This will vary. Obviously, if it's grenades, floor loot, I'm not too excited about landing on that, or a heavy sniper floor loot that doesn't make it as easy to fight. But like if there's a lot of situations in this game where you can land on a weapon and then somebody else landing on a chest will have to like pickaxe to get to the chest, like if they land on the roof of a house or something. And I just think typically landing on the weapon is the safer play to do, and you just will easily kill them before they even open the chest in a lot of cases. If you're playing a team game mode, this should go without saying, but try to land close to your teammates. You don't literally need to be at the same house as them or at the exact same building, because then you're kind of taking each other's loot, but be close enough to help them or get help from them if it comes down to it. I cannot describe like how odd it is to me that this is a foreign concept to people, where they'll just land on completely opposite sides of the POI and then they have no potential to help each other at all. So try to land near your teammates. Obviously your landing will really dictate this. Sometimes you might have to be a little bit further away just because that's the house you can get or whatever. But more often than not, I think it's better to kind of be at least in helping distance to your teammates off spawn. Another thing that can be super helpful for early game, and this is kind of like after you've looted your initial spot, but kind of have your next few rotations in mind, or where you're going to go after looting your POI, because this is going to make it easier to just be consistent. Like this season, for example, getting to one of the vault POIs like at or around second zone can be pretty important, because that's when the boss spawns. So if you like landing at Frenzy and then you go Shattered afterwards, or you go Mega afterwards, whichever one you want, try to do that consistently. That way you at least know like the timing of when you need to leave Frenzy to get there, and where you can expect other people along that loot path, or what other loot you can pick up from that. You know what I mean? I think just like consistently doing the same rotation, even when there aren't vaults in the game, it just kind of goes to consistency, because you understand the timing more, you understand like where to expect people at more, and it just makes things super easy. Other things you might want to be concerned about is like sword racks. They spawn in certain areas, so maybe you want to land somewhere and then like kind of hit that up afterwards if you don't get a sword. The attack on Titan crates can also be helpful for this, or even hollow chests in the area. Kind of knowing where these things are around your drop spot can be super helpful. There is a website called fortnite.gg, I'll have it linked in the description down below, where it kind of has the map and you can select different things that you want to see on the map, and it shows you exactly where like every chest spawn is, every floor loot spawn, every sword rack spawn, things of that nature. And I also think it'll help you place like consistently deeper in the game if you do consistently land at the same few spots. So I hate landing at the same location every game. I get bored like very fast doing that. But I have like a few spots that I like going to somewhat consistently. And I think if you learn these few spots, not only are you going to play early game better because you're more familiar with those spots, but if you rotate the same way after looting those spots, then like your mid game gets more consistent too. And it just makes the game much easier if you kind of consistently land at similar spots. I wouldn't recommend only landing at one location though. Like I said, it does get boring, and you're also going to be kind of scuffed if you only land at one location and then that location gets removed next season. I feel like you're just automatically going to have a somewhat negative experience with the launch of the new season if that's what happens to you. But hopefully this video was helpful or informative for you. If it was, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.